What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the host of Hoops Tonight over at The Volume, which just ended, I believe.
Yes.
It's Jason Timpf. Way to switch scenes and get over here, JT. How you doing?
I'm very good. First of all, Happy New Year to you. I suppose I've told you in person already, but I'll say it on the show. And Happy New Year to all the listeners of the All-NBA pod. It was easy enough to make this work considering that we had one incredibly interesting basketball game last night that we can all dive into.
Yes. Did my mic just switch over? Somebody was telling me that.
Good mic.
Now I got my good one. All right, there you go. Yes, man. Last night, so we actually, it always feels like the calendar year. I mean, technically it's Christmas, right? That's the marquee day. It feels like the beginning of the season. That's always the big one. But New Year's, it's like, all right, it's basketball time. The NBA, our NFL regular season's over. Let's check in on the topics. And I feel like we're feeling that in the NBA. We had a great one last night that we're going to break down between the Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder, which I'm excited to break down. But later on in the show, we're going to talk about, has our opinion changed about a couple of key players? De'Aaron Fox, Michael Porter Jr., Jaylen Brown, Luka Dončić. All of those guys have something interesting. And for me, on some of those guys, my opinion has changed. And then we'll predict some storylines for 2026. But first, I'm going to ask you, before we get into the Suns Thunder breakdown, which was a phenomenal game and a lot of great storylines, is there anything from over the weekend, anything else that's just kind of on your mind as you see, some of the latest trends or big storylines?
So I know we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown more as an individual player later, but the Celtics offense I think has been really fascinating to me. They've had a 122 offensive rating all season, 126 in this 7 out of 8 stretch. And it's got me thinking, because I would say the original kind of driver of this idea in this era is actually the Denver Nuggets, and kind of the conversation that Nikola Jokic had after winning the title about continuity and how important it is to have the same guys, in the same system year in, year out. And I was watching Hauser and Pritchard and White and Brown in the starting lineup with Kada against the Clippers, just kicking the crap out of a really good Clippers team that has been playing really well for a few weeks, I should say. And in that instance, I'm like, these guys were all on the 2022 Celtics. These guys have all been around for the entirety of the Joe Mazzulla era. And I do think it's fascinating to see, I think there's a real level of continuity and consistency with the Celtics offense that's starting to pay dividends. Like, these dudes, they just get in and out of their sets quickly. They always space the floor really well. Their principles on that end in terms of spacing are as sharp as you'll see in the league. They move the ball through the defense and get the ball to the right spots over and over again, and they generate tons and tons of quality looks. And the last stat I'll use to kind of drive this home is they are generating the same amount of unguarded catch and shoot threes as they did in 2024, when they had, the younger version of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis was out there, and Jason Tatum was out there. And it just goes to show you that there's been a level of, again, a payoff from a level of investment in their system over years that's starting to pay off. And I just think it's really fascinating.
I think it's a great point. The thing that I was going to talk about builds off of this, because I feel like, Adam Silver, I think, is trying to build the era of parity. It's one of he has a lot of different ideas, a lot of different things he's trying to tweak, but I think the end goal he wants is to have this NFL style coming into the year. Anybody can feel like they can win it, and everybody feels like they're on the right track. And I think mission accomplished in large part. I mean, when you just look at a slate, it's rare that you'll see an entire slate where every game seems predetermined. Mm-hmm. Almost every night you're looking at half the games and saying, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. The Brooklyn Nets, not a great team, kind of a tanking team. They're good. They can beat anybody on any given night as we're seeing. And it's not just because of like one thing. They're good at multiple things. And I think that's what you're looking at right now across the league is there's just a lot of good. What I would say is I don't know that there's parity in terms of how many teams can win it. I still think it's a small group of teams that you look at on how many teams can win the championship. But on any given night, it feels like every game is going to be competitive. And that makes it exhausting, I think, for every team because you have to bring your best every night. But it also makes it exciting that there's maybe 7 or 8 teams in the league where every game they go into, I think they're going to lose. Outside of that, I just look at it and say, yep, this will be a good game.
Yeah, that middle tier in the NBA, whether it's like a Portland as an example or Golden State as an example, like if you catch one of these teams that's in that kind of middle third of the NBA and they happen to be playing really good basketball at that point in time, that just turns into a super tough game to win. I mean, Phoenix is kind of a classic example. Like Phoenix, this is a crazy idea, Adam. They're 2 games back from the 4th best record in the entire.
they're going to climb here. There's 2 teams that are going to fall. We're going to talk about it, but they're going to climb. They're not going to be down there even that low for long.
Yeah, but like a road game in Phoenix, coming into the season, you'd think, oh, that's one that it's a pretty winnable game. Like Oklahoma City played great and they lost. Like that's kind of the nature of the current NBA, and I just think it makes for really riveting television when you can catch that many good games any given night.
100%. And so we'll get into this game because the Suns get a win 108-105, and it started as a blowout. But it was actually started as 2 blowouts. The Oklahoma City raced out to a big lead right out of the gate, and the Suns stormed back. And then in the second quarter, they built an 18-point lead, and the Suns stormed back yet again. And then this game comes down to the wire, and the Suns go up by 4 points with, I think, like 38 seconds or so, somewhere around there, 35 seconds, and felt like it was in the bag, and they blundered it. They gave up a tough bucket. Chet Holmgren hits this like turnaround jumper on the baseline, which is a tough shot, especially with pressure. He drains it to go down by 2. And on the ensuing possession, Dillon Brooks sort of dribbles it off his foot like an unforced error. One of those plays where you go, that's how you lose games against good teams is just protect the ball, be safe. They're probably going to foul you. I think there was a 2-second differential between the shot clock and game clock. So just don't do anything reckless. And he kind of did. He put himself in position of like, well, I'm going to try to escape out of the corner and get to the basket. Dribbles it off his foot. And of course, Shai ties the game. So I thought at that moment, I was like, poor Suns. They did all this work. They had it in the bag, and then they fumble it with just a couple of seconds left. But Devin Booker hit kind of a season-defining shot, I guess. Like he's having a great year in terms of this. He's leading this team, and he's the backbone of this team, the leader, all those different things. But a down year in terms of shot making. So for him to get that and clear everybody out against Alex Caruso nonetheless, the late double was coming because he had wasted so much shot clock. The double was coming late. He sees it. He knew exactly what he wanted to do the whole time, sidesteps lefts and elevates for, I don't know what it turned out to be, a 30-something foot three-pointer, and drains it to win the game. To me, I was like, man, that might not have been a better way for that to go. Fumbling it sucks at the end with the Dillon Brooks turnover, but giving Booker the opportunity to give them that win, their biggest win of the year, I just thought if you're a Suns fan, it couldn't get better than that for a regular season win.
Yeah, like Dillon did try to box out Chet on that play. Chet just whipped right around him and got the putback with that little turnaround. And that shot J-Dub hit the tie. It was actually a super tough shot. Like, and the point is like the Thunder are just so good that they're going to make plays at the end of games all year long. They've done that too, where you just think you have them dead, but they're just not quite dead. What I thought was so cool about the Devin Booker shot was he took it deeper in a way that I thought he kind of needed to under the circumstances. He was dribbling out, 40 feet from the basket right at the top of the key, and he has the ball in his right hand, and he goes that scissor dribble to his left through the legs, and he attacks, and he takes one attack step. And when he does, you see Alex Caruso take this massive retreat step, and Alex ends up going way south of the three-point line. So it's like he did his job to create separation. So in theory, you think, oh, Devin can continue to take another dribble to get something closer, but instead he goes right to the step back. And I thought that was genius because, one, you called it, Dort was coming over. And if he takes one more step forward, Dort's easily in position to offer a double team. And they had already rotated off of Gillespie in the corner up to Dillon Brooks on the left wing. So they might have gone swing, and the clock might have run out without even getting a shot out. So like he avoided the Dort double. And then also I've kind of thought this, you get into Alex Caruso's body more and maybe he can get a little handsy with you. Maybe there's an uncalled foul. Like it was one of those ones where I thought Devin took a longer shot, but it was the right shot in that circumstance, given the way they were being guarded. And he just got great lift, man. He got high off the ground on that one and just snapped the wrist and knocked it down. That was an unbelievable piece of shot making.
I love the way you break it down. By the way, this is JT's game. If anybody doesn't know, a total like that. You get the ISO. You're trying to get to the jumper there. So I love that you break it down because this is a shot very well. But the thing about it is, this is the thing with the Thunder, and your point about the swing, the time was out. Dort is great at this. The Thunder in general are great at this, that they have their principles, but the principles change depending on the shot clock. And as the shot clock gets down to 1 second, 2 seconds, at that point, you can fully double because it's only one rotation, not two behind you. It's only one rotation. And I think Devin Booker knew that also going into it. His whole plan was, because I'm watching him dribble at the top, and part of me was thinking there's not enough time. He's waiting too long. He's going to into a tough shot. I think that was always his plan. His plan was, if I drive too early, the help, it's so hard to get by Caruso, the help, this or that. He's like, I'm going to wait. I know the double's going to come, and I'm just going to get to my spot and elevate on a tough one. And it was a big shot. So, it's important, I think, in a weird way, for Devin Booker to have these, to have some of these ones, because you want to win as a team a lot, but you also want to win with your star player making shots like that from time to time, because it gives you that confidence. But the story of this game, in my opinion, Jordan Goodwin, 8 of 13 from 3. Not only is that a season high, it's a career high. His previous career high was 5 made threes. His previous season high was 3. Some nights you give up 8 threes to a guy who doesn't do that very often. He's a good player, but what do you make of the fact that he was so hot and did his job to such a high level in this game?
Yeah, so I'm a big Jordan Goodwin fan, and it's been especially hard for me to watch this season as the Lakers have been utterly devoid of two-way talent, and they just straight up waived Jordan Goodwin. They let him walk for nothing, and he's like exactly what they could use if he was still playing. So it's been hard for me to watch, but yeah. He's added a level of offensive polish this season that has made him an even better player than he was in years past. But in years past, I've always liked him as just a scrapper. He's got one of the best like nose for the ball type of like kind of aggressive, good hands. Gets every loose ball offensive rebound type of situation that you can imagine. He's just very gifted in those things, but he's added offensive polish that's made it more useful. I thought one of the big stories of the game tactically was just the job that Phoenix did moving the ball through OKC's defense compared to Oklahoma City. So one of the big differences in the statistical side of things that I thought was fascinating was Phoenix got more threes up. I think they got like 43 threes up, and Oklahoma City got 32. And it was coming directly out of mid-rangers. So Oklahoma City took 18 mid-range shots in the game. Phoenix took only 8. And so there was a tendency, because they were both guarding each other in very similar fashions. You got these big rim protectors underneath the basket. They're digging down into driving lanes. You were talking about that Lou Dort double team. There's a very similar dynamic taking place at the end of the game with Jordan Goodwin doubling off of J-Dub on the right wing onto some of Shai's ISOs on the left wing. And so they were both kind of guarding each other in similar ways, but Phoenix was doing a better job in the game of attacking and passing through the defense and getting these quality threes. So like Jordan Goodwin's getting threes off of like Devin Booker drawing a double on the right wing, swing, easy 3 for Jordan Goodwin in the left corner. Or Colin Gillespie gets an opportunity off an offensive rebound. He racks a closeout, draws help, kicks it in the right corner, wide open 3 for Jordan Goodwin. He knocks it down. And so I thought he was paying off the sequences by hitting the shots. But I just want to credit Phoenix for what I thought was some really good offense in that game. I just thought they did a really good job passing it through Oklahoma City's defense.
There's no question about it. I mean, we're going to talk about this in a second. They are so connected. And I actually think we're in the era of connection. There's a lot of teams that are playing connected basketball, but the fact that they pulled it off after the season they had and the turmoil and just all the new faces and bodies and philosophies, the fact that they can get to this point honestly is what makes them the best story of the season. But before we get there, I want to ask about offensive rebounding. And really just rebounding in general. Wasn't a big story for him in this game, but it is one of the things he brings to the table. And I remember like 6 years ago, teams were punting on offensive rebounds as a tactic. It just wasn't efficient at the time, and we're getting threes and we're preventing fast breaks. And I wonder if we're swinging in the other direction, and in particular with non-centers. I do think your centers have to rebound when they're playing the dunker spot. We see teams like the Knicks obviously do this well, but the other thing the Knicks do well is they have Hart, who crashes the boards and gives you these extra possessions. And I think there's a way. I wonder, it'd be an interesting question for a coach right now. When you have a player, Goodwin's one of them, Hart's obviously the best example, but there's a handful of these guys. They go for the offensive boards, and when they get them, it's great. And when they don't, they're in position to be right at the point of attack defensively. And it's like they split the difference between this. I tried to get it, I didn't get it, but the guy right in front of me got it, and I'm on him. Like there's no fast break because I swapped from offensive rebounder to full court presser right away. And I think it's kind of a sneaky, underrated thing that a lot of teams are pulling off right now, and it seems deliberate.
Yeah, no, I would even add to that, like, the point you're making about that guy corner crashing and being in position to pressure the ball is key. But like when they're crashing out of both corners too, that it's kind of like gets them running. Like I've noticed it too, like it kind of breeds a natural energy where if those guys are kind of already running, they're in position to then swoop up the floor if they don't get the ball. Like you crash through the middle, right? And they, there's a lot of like geometry to it that's really smart. Like they're not corner crashing just randomly towards the basket. A lot of times they're going to the elbows because that's where the ball's coming off the rim on these threes. And so if you swoop to the elbow and you don't get the ball, you're either in position to pick up the ball or you're in position to sprint back on defense. And I think what's happening is teams are realizing the actual trade-off of offensive rebounding versus transition defense isn't as bad as you would think. If there are certain things that you shouldn't do, like crashing off the top can get a little dangerous, especially if you're
no balance.
Yeah, especially if you're big, because if you start ending up with too many guys south of the foul line, that can be a problem. But yeah, it's part of the overall kind of shift towards winning the possession battle and an understanding that there's a give and a take, but it might benefit you. Like if you are super handsy on defense and you commit fouls, but you also force more turnovers, maybe you force more turnovers and score more points off of those turnovers, then you send the other team to the line. And it's just, everything's about a trade-off, and teams are just finding that these trade-offs actually benefit them more than they realized.
So one of the things now, here's an interesting one for the Suns, who are obviously having this great year. They've beaten a lot of good teams, by the way. This is not a matter of they have a couple good wins. They have good wins against a lot of good teams. Minnesota, San Antonio, Oklahoma City now. These are the teams that they would face in the playoffs. I think they're a bad matchup against Denver and Houston, just for size reasons. I mean, I've followed Denver long enough and Jokic long enough. If you don't have a player that can make his life hard, you're kind of cooked, in my opinion. So you have to have somebody, and I don't think they have anybody. So I think Jokic would have a relatively easy series if they were to play Phoenix. And Houston has the size as well to just punish them in a way that might tilt things in their favor. But these other teams, they're beating them. And these are good wins that they're getting. And they're doing it without Jalen Green. They're doing it largely lately without Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen should be returning tonight. By the way, did you see the story that their plane got delayed? They didn't get out to Houston. They played tonight in Houston. They didn't leave till this morning at like 10 o'clock. Actually, right around now. So that's going to be a tough one for him.
Oh, man.
But you get Grayson Allen back, and then you'll get Jalen Green back here in a week or two at the latest. But they're getting good contributions from guys, and I kind of wonder, like, will that affect them? Obviously, I think with Grayson Allen, he's been playing. I think that'll be positive. Jalen Green, is there a ramp-up period now that the team has established an identity that is very important, and he's a guy that doesn't naturally fit that, but I'm sure wants to fit it? Is there a period now where you kind of shake things up with his return?
Man, that's a really good question. Because, I mean, the subplot here is Dillon Brooks has been awesome. Like, just flat out awesome. Like, he's a reliable 21-point per game scorer. He's made more pull-up jump shots off the dribble this year than Steph Curry or DeMar DeRozan. Like,
that's an insane stat.
I saw that stat this morning. I was like, that's good, complete. And he had he hit two ridiculous shots at the end of the fourth quarter yesterday. That snatchback dribble against Cason Wallace, where he hit that little pull-up along the right corner, and then that step-back three over Shai. They opened the fourth quarter spamming ISOs for him against J-Dub, and he was scoring every time. And I'm like, there's a certain amount of, like, you can't afford to rock the boat with how good Dillon Brooks has been playing, but there's enough.
And they rally behind him. Hold up real quick, this part too, because his game is not the most aesthetically, we did aesthetically pleasing games last week. He's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but it has been effective. And I don't think he takes a bad shot every now and then. He'll take a bad one. I don't think anybody cares because they know that guy's giving you everything they've got. And there's something to that. Right now, the team feels like everybody is giving everything they've got. And you just there's a trust and a forgiveness that you have for everybody when you know that part's there.
Absolutely, and he's made enough of them that like a Dillon Brooks pull-up jump shot's been worth a point this year. That it's been an efficient shot for them, so like they can go to it and get something of value out of it. But you're right, like everyone's going to give you more leeway when you're competing the way he's competing on the other end of the floor. And like they had him guard Chet all night so that they could switch ball screens, and they put Mark Williams on Lou Dort so he can roam off, and that ended up working pretty well for them throughout the game. The thing with Jalen Green that I'd be careful with is more just kind of limiting his decision making. So like there's enough, the Suns are generating enough closeout opportunities with their drives to where I think Jalen Green actually can have some success as a spot up shooter and a slasher, like just ripping closeouts when he catches on the perimeter. I just would try to keep him in those particular situations as much as possible. And like where I think Jalen Green can get into trouble is when he's like running ball screens and ISOs, he tends to over penetrate into help, and he'll either miss layups or he'll turn the ball over in traffic in the middle of the floor. And if you have him playing with an advantage more, attacking closeouts and things along those lines, I think that would be the piece that could drive them towards drive him towards actually having kind of a useful spot in this rotation. It's been interesting because I actually thought the Suns would be better than I thought they'd be about 500, maybe a little below 500. Very scrappy. I expected them to be great defensively with the addition of Dillon Brooks and having Ryan Dunn, and Devin Booker's a quality defender, and you have some rim protection. Where the surprise has been is this team actually has shot the ball pretty well. They've been a very good catch and shoot 3-point shooting team this year. They're 38%, which is better than I would have expected coming into the season. And then Dillon Brooks has provided this additional scoring. So as long as Jalen Green can kind of fit in there without disrupting that specific dynamic, I think it makes sense as a depth addition. I just don't think you can have him create too much circumstances.
Last one here as we go to the other side. Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't want to say reeling because but they kind of are. I mean, they've lost some high. They kind of lost some high profile games. So what do we make of this? Is this just? I think it's hard to maintain the pace that they've been at for a season and a half. It's just, as everybody finds out, it's hard to maintain that pace over and over again. They are as equipped as anybody to mentally. I think they have the right mentality. I think Shai is an unbelievable leader. I got to give Shai this credit. He is a great quote, and I don't mean that as in he gives you a good tweet. I just mean like the substance of what he says when he's reflective on the team to me is always so honest and true and humble, but not fake humble. It's like he like really understands, hey man, no, that team San Antonio beat us. How can we say we're better than them? Like he just always has the right perspective on things. But they've dropped a couple games now as their schedule's gotten tough. So what do we make of it?
So I think there have been two things that have kind of risen from, like, anytime you have any singular game, there can be some noise. There have been games where, the turnovers, like last night, the Thunder had 18 turnovers. That's super unusual for them. They don't turn the ball over a lot. Like, I'm not really concerned about that specifically. Shai had a rough game. I expect Shai to be better. Shai missed a lot of shots that he normally makes. He got a little bit grift hunty in the third quarter where I thought he was like hunting that like kind of foul on his pull-up mid-ranger, which I thought took him out of rhythm a little bit.
Can we talk about this real quick? Because it seemed controversial yesterday. I thought that they really swallowed their whistles and have a little bit on Shai for a while. I don't know if the league is adjusting or what, but he has not been getting some of the calls that I think he's accustomed to. And last night there was a couple high-profile ones he went to and didn't get.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can get anecdotal with it and be like, oh, like there was a play in the first half where he kind of spun off of a guy and went up to the basket, and I thought a big came over who was not vertical, and I thought it probably should have been a foul. There was another one of those third quarter kind of grifty jumpers he took where he got bumped, and I was like, yeah, it kind of looks like the call you just gave Devin Booker on the other end. So like you can get anecdotal about it and be like, this call's bad, this call's missed, whatever. But ultimately, Shai's got the second highest free throw rate of his career this season. And he's got a higher free throw rate this year than he did last year. And he has a higher free throw rate than he did 2 years ago. Like he's still getting to the line a ton relative to the amount of shots he's taking. So I think I don't think I was a little confused by the some of the stuff I saw coming from the Thunder fan base last night, because I just think Shai continues to get one of the better whistles in the league relative. Here's the thing with Shai. It is reductive to call him a foul grifter because he's so much more than that as a basketball player. Yeah. And there are definitely players that are worse than him. Like, I've been rooting for Luka, and I think his Friday night game against Memphis was one of the biggest like atrocities of foul grifting I've ever seen, as he attempted like 20 something free throws against Memphis. But like, every time I see it, it still sucks to watch. And there is a certain amount of like, I do think it can take you out of rhythm. So for instance, Shai missed a lot of mid-range shots that he normally makes in that game. But like, when you're taking them in a way that is less geared towards knocking the shot down and more geared towards drawing a foul, it makes it a lower percentage shot. So the example I'd give is there were two that he took in the third quarter, one where he did draw the foul on Devin Booker and one where he didn't, where he was driving to his right. And when he did his left-right footwork to take off, he took off and went straight up and down instead of having that like natural drift that most two guards have when they're shooting on the move, where you get lift, but you drift just a little bit. It helps you get separation and it feels more natural and kind of flowy as you're coming off the ground. And it's like, he missed the shots where he went straight up and down because they're kind of janky looking, and you could tell he's trying to land on the defender instead of just like elevate and drift like you normally do as a two guard. You get better separation, you have better natural lift and flow in the shot, you knock it down. So I think there's a fine line between grifting to kind of get yourself additional trips to the line and help win the scoreboard, but you got to be careful not to take yourself out of rhythm. And I thought Shai did a little bit of that in the third quarter last night.
Well, this time of year, every year, the NBA will do these like shadow refereeing adjustments. And I just watching them the last couple of games, I'm wondering if they're trying to be a little bit more keyed in on that, because I think that he actually had some calls that didn't go his way in this one. And it's like, I wonder if the league is over adjusting or just adjusting to him. It's something to kind of, and it's not just him. I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of players that have kind of taken this to the zenith, and I wonder if it's going to adjust for them. But the Thunder, you know, a little bit of test for them. It's not the worst thing to go through a little test, especially when you're up so much in the standings. Not the worst thing to get a couple reminder losses, you know, going into the second half of the season. So I think it'll all be good for them. All right, we got to take a break.
Really quickly, the two things that keep popping up for them, their offensive rebounding. They gave up 12 offensive rebounds last night. There was a 12-2 advantage. That has been a consistent issue in their losses. And then their three-point shooting. They're shooting just 31% from three in their 6 losses. They're making the open ones. Again, we talked about this last week, but they're 7 for 18 on unguarded catch-and-shoot threes last night. That's 39%. That's 1.17 points per shot. They were over 40% on catch-and-shoot threes that were unguarded against San Antonio. Everything off the dribble and everything that's been contested for Oklahoma City from three has cratered in percentage in these losses. And so again, just that situational three-point shooting and then that offensive rebounding piece, those are the two things that I think keep popping up for OKC that are at least worth mentioning.
And it's pretty fascinating because, I mean, the West is there's just so many matchups. You know, Denver, Houston, they're great at this. They're great at offensive rebounding. So there's some interesting teams there that everybody in the West, I think it's going to be a little bit of paper, rock, scissors. There's teams that I love the matchup against everyone and teams I hate the matchup against everyone. So it'll be really fascinating. Let's take a break because on the other side, I want to get to, has your opinion changed about Jaylen Brown? He's saying he thinks he's an MVP candidate, and you know what? He's right. He should be. De'Aaron Fox, Michael Porter Jr., Luka Dončić. We'll talk about those guys on the other side. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30, it's NBA Happy Hour on FanDuel, your pregame for the weekend. We're talking limited time specials you won't want to miss, boosts, bonuses, surprises, all dropping in the app during Happy Hour. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app to see the week specials. Then make your move before the shot clock expires at 7:30 Eastern. It's the perfect way to start your weekend. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern, only on FanDuel, official sports book partner of the NBA.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
Let me also tell you guys about Shopify. What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? Well, it's 2026, the start of a new year. It's time to start thinking about different dreams and goals. I am such a strong believer in people having hobbies and sometimes turning those hobbies into side hustles or even main hustles. And if you do that, whether it's selling novelty items or crafts or whatever it is you're doing, Shopify is the e-commerce platform you need to know about because they're the platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Yes, we have a merch store. You can buy lots of very high quality merch, by the way. We have some of the best high quality sports merch you're going to find out there. Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're thinking of starting a small business or if you already have a small business, consider Shopify, an entire suite of products that will help you maximize sales. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. That's the sound it makes, by the way, on your phone every time there's a sale. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. I'm with Jason Timpf. Tim Legler will be joining us on Wednesday and Friday this week. He had a little travel schedule, so he had to move some things around. But we got JT with us on Monday to this week. I want to talk about some guys. I'm watching Michael Porter over the weekend. He gets his revenge against Denver. I call it revenge. I think it's a friendly revenge. But, he always wanted to go to another place and spread his wings a little bit. He was in Denver, sacrificed a lot to be the third option. It's hard to be a third option when you have the talent to be more than that. He goes to Brooklyn, and he gets to be a completely different player. He was phenomenal in the Brooklyn Nets' win over the Denver Nuggets over the weekend. And by the way, this Brooklyn Nets team is too good. Once again, they had to sit him out, thank God, against the Washington Wizards. That was a tank fest. They had to keep him out because if he was in there, they would have dominated. But he is not only scoring at a very efficient rate as a volume scorer, he's passing the ball well. He's playing as a team player well. I know I thought he had some of this in him, but he definitely is doing it at a higher level and more consistently than I would have even imagined. So, yes, my opinion of Michael Porter Jr. has changed. Has yours as well?
We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I didn't want Denver to trade Michael Porter Jr. because Michael Porter Jr. wasn't a good basketball player or that he wasn't capable of helping the team. I thought it was a reorganization of the starting lineup towards foot speed that I thought was important. I thought it had more to do with just the positional needs of the Nuggets in the starting lineup than it did with, Michael Porter Jr.'s individual skill set. I think he's a 4. I think he's a 4 these days. And the Nuggets already have a starting 4 in Aaron Gordon. And it works to a certain extent, but as the league has shifted towards speed, as you've seen the Oklahoma City's rise and look at what Phoenix is doing, look what Minnesota does, look what Indiana did last year, Boston now, like as you see the league kind of shift towards size, it's just really hard to compete up and down the floor with teams when you've got, 3 slow-footed dudes at the 3, 4, and 5, right? So like I think for Denver, it was more just like a reorganization of the lineup. And so to me, Michael Porter Jr. has always been a guy that can do high volume work coming in and out of action. I thought we saw enough of that even in the Denver situation when like Murray would be out of the lineup for a game or Gordon would be out of the lineup, and they'd kind of shift a little bit more to some more DHOs with him and Jokic and having more opportunity for him to curl over a screen towards the elbow and either shoot or make a read from there. I think that anytime you see a guy increase volume without sacrificing efficiency, it's impressive. So I don't want to sit here and pretend like Michael Porter Jr. has not been impressive this year. I just think that I think it was always a possible outcome that he'd go to Brooklyn and put up big numbers. I think we talked about that over the summer as well. It was just a question of whether or not he'd be able to maintain efficiency, because there's a lot of guys that go do that and they jack up shots in their efficiency tanks. And so to his credit, he's shown the ability to increase his volume without sacrificing efficiency. But to me, Michael Porter Jr. has always been capable of this sort of thing.
He's an underrated finisher in these like short touch shots, not just dunks at the rim and layup package around the rim, but little like awkward off balance touch shots. You can get to the paint, but you can't quite get to the rim. And now you have to shoot a little touch shot. He's underrated at that. He's just a natural scorer and he gets to do that a lot more. But the thing that stands out to me is just how well he is reading the court in his reads. and what I mean by that is he's not the type of guy that's going to run a bunch of pick and roll and read the court. Where's the rotation? But he runs off ball, tries to get to the 3-point shot, and he'll elevate. And if he's open, he's obviously shooting it every single time. But he's doing a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quickly when like 2 guys jump out at him. And so his reads, it's not like he has 20 different reads to make. He's got 3 or 4, but he makes them over and over again at a high level. And I think that is the difference, because when you are the third option, your mind switches to like, okay, well, I can't play totally on feel because we're trying to do this. I can't be trying to do anything different. In this role, what he wants is first. Like, I'm trying to do this. So your reads become almost natural. But I just watch him and I'm like, man, he makes some really nice reads in this role that he's in.
No, it's so interesting that you frame it that way, because I've seen similar things over the years. Jaylen Brown actually kind of falls into this mix a little bit, where like when he was playing off of Tatum, it made more sense for him to focus almost solely as a scorer. But like now that he's managing game flow more often, it's more important for him to be relentless with reads. Cooper Flagg, at the beginning of the year, the ball was in his hands so much that you could see him processing a lot more, looking for reads. Whereas now they've shifted him off the ball and he's been more aggressive as a scorer when he looks to catch, and it's been interesting to see that dynamic. But I agree with you. Like with Michael Porter Jr. in his new role in Brooklyn, it's far more important for him at this volume to be diligent about making his reads. Otherwise, his shot quality is going to fall off a cliff when teams are, sending 2 at him and it's not working.
Here's an interesting thought about Michael Porter Jr., and I had it in real time when it happened. Jamal Murray goes down in 2021. 2022, to me, I was actually excited for it, even though it was a travesty that Denver, right as they entered their prime, lost their second best player. But I was so excited to see what Michael Porter looked like as the second option instead of the third. It was like, all right, well, Murray's gone for a year. Let's see MPJ Jokic develop a 2-man game, and maybe it works and it's awesome. And if not, you still come back with Murray the following year, and now you have 2 guys that have a full season of chemistry. And he gets hurt immediately. And I think it's like one of these weird tragedies. I mean, his career has been a little tragic, and he's made the most of it. You have to tip your hat. 3 back surgeries, and he is still playing in the NBA and doing what he's doing. But that year, to me, I look at and go, God, what I wouldn't give to an in his prime Jokic and a just entering his prime MPJ to get 1 season together to just say, what is this? And we never got it.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think that, like, again, I thought over the years in spots, like Jamal's out for a week here, a week there. I thought he did a good enough job. I thought there was a little bit of a ceiling against competition. It felt like when they would go against some of the more athletic teams, it didn't work as well, but it felt like something that they could go to. Overall, I agree with you, though. I think one of the things with Michael Porter Jr. too that's been super underrated in his career is that, like, he's a serious basketball player in a winning context. Like, he is a good secondary rim protector. He's a very good defensive rebounder. He's got enough of that, like, just been around a winning system long enough to where, like, he's kind of usually in the right spot off the ball defensively and does his job on a possession-to-possession basis. He's not super mistake-prone like a Karl Anthony Towns, things along those lines. So I just think he turned himself into a really well-rounded NBA player.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go to the next guy here. We talked about him a little bit, but Jaylen Brown. Celtics are 22-12, and he's the mid-range assassin. He is taking the second most mid-range, just raw mid-range shots per game. He's taking the second most. If you make those long mid-range, I think it's like 16 feet or so, 16 feet and out. He's taking the most, and he's shooting unbelievable at it. 50% overall, 55% on those long ones. Has your opinion changed about him? I mean, you see the quotes, by the way, for him after this Kawhi game that he came. Jay King over at The Athletic had a great article where it talked about on the plane ride over, he was feeling some kind of way about not getting player of the month. And he went to Joe Mazzulla right after Kawhi's 55-point game. And he said, listen, I want to guard him every possession. Just let me guard him tonight because I have this chip on my shoulder. And he goes out, shuts Kawhi down, or at least limits him to 22 points, and then gives you 50 piece. How many players in the NBA could do that? Hold Kawhi to 22 and score 50 in the same game? I'm not sure there's any other than him. So has your opinion changed about him with what he's done this year?
I don't know how anybody out there could not have had their opinion on Jaylen Brown change. I mean, like, there's good and then there's this good. And, first of all, the player of the month thing I think is complicated because Jalen Brunson was like at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander levels of efficiency and volume over the course of the last month, and he won the in-season tournament. So, like, even though I understand Jaylen Brown's gripe, but, like, I thought Brunson was a defensible choice, is my point.
Yeah.
Like even if you want to argue Jalen was better, that's fine. But I thought it was defensible at least. But after the Clippers game, he came out and he was like, I'm the best two-way player in the world right now. And so I woke up this morning and I'm like, all right, like, let's dig into this. Like, does he have a case? And first of all, like, before we go any further, no one's giving you that credit for a month of basketball. Like, you want to know why? You want to know why Nikola Jokic is recognized universally, basically, as the best basketball player in the world?
6 years.
It's because for year after year after year after month after 10-game stretch after 10-game stretch after 15-game stretch, he's just consistently doing this, and like he's playing 70+ games every year and all this kind of until this year. But like with Jaylen Brown, his last 16 games, 33, 7-6, 61% true shooting, and he's guarding one of the best perimeter threats on the other team every night. There isn't a player doing more than that right now. So, like, I can't argue with him in the short term. Now, whether or not he gets that sort of recognition in the long run is going to come down, obviously, to sustaining it for a very long time. But he's right. He's literally playing better than everybody right now. And so we've got to give him that credit. And, like, frankly, like, there's been a level of just overall improvement across the board from, like, the diligence with his drives, the kind of like very procedural way he's managed offense, like hunting specific matchups and then getting his spacing right before he looks to attack, not forcing the issue when he gets into the middle of the floor. Like he made a couple of really nice reads in the third quarter against Help when he was in the middle of a 50-point masterpiece where he's literally like, he's taking like a leaning forward three on step through and hitting it. Like he could literally make anything. And he's still like hitting Jordan Walsh on a little baseline cut for a dunk or like making a nice kick out for a three. Like there was so much of that, like command of the floor. His left hand driving has been stronger. He's not turning the ball over as much when he gets to his left hand. The mid-range pull-up shooting, his efficiency has been off the charts good. He's been he's like in that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander territory in terms of efficiency and volume on those mid-range twos. And so there's just a level of like across the board improvement from him that I don't think anybody could say they saw coming. Like, I mean, if you were to say before the season, what are you hoping for from Jaylen Brown this year? You're like, dude, if he gets you to like 45 wins and he averages like an efficient 28, you're like, that's a resounding success under the circumstance. Right. Screw all that. They might be the best team in the East. Like, it's incredible, man.
But hold on to that for 1 second, because I want to make one other point real quick. I saw a little subtle eye roll from you about the Eastern Conference Player of the Year, him feeling snubbed some kind of way about it. I think there's a lot of players when they don't get an award that they feel they were owed. It is like, why didn't they pick me? I almost get the sense from Jaylen Brown that he was so happy they didn't pick him. Like almost like how MJ wanted somebody to trash to him. Jaylen Brown's quotes are almost like, oh yes, okay, new motivation just dropped, like in this weird way. And so it's almost like he would have not wanted to be a Conference Player of the Month because he would have had to come up with something else. It gave him the fuel he wanted to go into that game against the Clippers.
Another reason to get pissed off, and guys, like. That Clippers team, I don't know how many people have been watching them. They've been on fire, really good for the last couple of weeks. And Kawhi has been arguably every bit as good as Jaylen Brown in this.
This is why it's so perfect. It wasn't like he went in and shut down, Dylan Brooks or something. Good player, but it's like whatever. No, he shut down maybe the hottest player in the NBA, the toughest cover at the moment.
Yeah, and not to get like too into the weeds here, but like I thought one of the things that was interesting with Kawhi's recent run is it was very dependent on pull-up shooting. Like he wasn't getting to the rim a ton. It wasn't like he was playing a ton of bully ball. He just like Kawhi's just been on this like surgical stretch of pull-up jump shooting, and I just thought Jaylen Brown closed the gap and just made the shots tougher, got great contests, and just turned them into lower percentage shots.
All right, I'm gonna go dumb guy. We try to be smart guy basketball analysts here, but I'm gonna be a little bit of a dumb guy. Is Jaylen Brown better suited to be the guy? Like every team has to sacrifice for one guy, and then everybody has to sacrifice for the second guy, and so on and so forth down the line. And I'm not trying to say who's better between him and Tatum overall, although Tatum might take a while to ramp up. Certainly if he does come back this year, that's an easy answer. But Jaylen Brown's game, though he might not be a better offensive player in a vacuum than Tatum, I just wonder if he's more suited for the role of lead guy, and Tatum is more suited for the guy of off ball of the lead guy. It feels like a hot takey question, but part of me is watching this and thinking their high profile wins in their championship run. It kind of naturally segued into that for stints, not for the whole game. And right now you're watching him and you're like, yeah, everybody kind of feels comfortable with him at the helm. He's unselfish.
So I personally disagree. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we got to see what it looks like when Tatum comes back, and if it ends up having some sort of impact on Jaylen, and if Jaylen's production tanks and the team doesn't do as well, I mean, it's worth having the conversation. But I actually go the other way on this. Like I think these are good problems to have. I think Jaylen Brown ascending to the status of superstar it can only mean good things for the future of the Celtics. And again, we talked about this at the very top of the show, but I think the success of the Celtics in large part comes down to a continuity and consistency of system that is starting to pay real dividends as the players know how to play within the system. And ultimately, what I think about with Jason Tatum coming back is like, you know, a little bit easier life for Derek White, a little bit easier life for Peyton Pritchard, a little bit easier life for Anthony Simons if he's still on the team at that point. I think about them losing to Portland. They've won 7 out of 8, and in the Portland loss down the stretch, they couldn't find a lineup that worked because they kept getting beat by Portland's bigs and their forwards. Jason Tatum can really help you with that. He can help anchor some of your defensive looks where he's switching off of centers like he did last year. He can really help you on the defensive glass, which has been a disaster for Boston this year. There's like a lot. I just look at it as like Jaylen Brown's ascending. The system with him and Tatum still works. When Tatum gets back, it's just going to make him better.
It's gonna be better than ever, in my opinion. Like from all of this, the Celtics now are going to have an even better team, I think, than their championship team.
I think so too. I think there's actually a really interesting conversation to be had about like kind of how Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis look towards the end, and like if you do get this kind of like production out of a Jordan Walsh and you get this kind of production out of a Josh Minot, and like you see Hugo Gonzalez starting to get a little bit more of an opportunity and showing some of the things he can do. And what if they do get an athletic like center, you know, that adds depth behind Keita? And what if they do add like 1 or 2 more quality pieces? And it's like, is this team capable of being better than the 2024 Celtics? And I think they are. I think that's certainly a possibility in the long run.
Let's go quickly over these last two. The next one I have for you is De'Aaron Fox. 55% effective field goal percentage, pretty good, but he's got the lowest shot quality from 3. He's just making a lot. And more importantly, like De'Aaron Fox, I think was – it's funny because he won a national championship in college, so it's funny to say this about a guy. But in the NBA, has not been part of like winning basketball very much. He's playing winning basketball, not a winning team. And I'm wondering, do you credit him for it? Has your opinion changed at all about him? I'll tell you, I kind of was pretty skeptical of his overall impact. But this year, obviously, he's been supremely impactful. Has your opinion changed at all?
I would say that I'm a little higher than I was on him in the last couple of years. Not too much, because like I thought in the first round series against Golden State, there were a couple things that popped up. His rim finishing went down. He was like 70% at the rim in the regular season. It dropped to the mid-50s against Golden State. But like I saw this consistent thing where I was like, oh, against good defenders, De'Aaron Fox can get to his spots, like in a physical playoff environment. And that felt like real to me. And then in the couple of years since then, you saw this market drop off in his jump shooting, which became a little bit of a problem. He was pretty good the following year, but then the year after that, 2025, he was not very good as a jump shooter. And so that kind of got disappointing for me because I'm like, okay, you look like you're poised to take this leap to like, you know, one of the great star guards in the league, and then you regress in a couple of key areas. But to his credit, he's shot the ball much better this season. And, you know, that I think is the ultimate kind of give and take with him is he's got the driving piece. I've always thought De'Aaron Fox is an underrated passer. He's very, very good at whipping cross-court passes to beat low-man help out of the opposite corner, which kind of is like a good thing that drives the engine for San Antonio's offense. But like he just needs that counter piece, which is that short range shot making, those little short pull-ups in the short to mid range, and then having the ability to knock down threes, especially when he's being helped off of. And so I think, again, it's similar to what we talked about with Jaylen Brown. Like, I'm not going to call you a great shooter because you shoot well for the half of a season, but I thought him coming into the season and rectifying what was the obvious area of opportunity in his game was at least a good sign that he's trying to maximize his potential. And you and I talked about this in like last show or the time before, but like, there was an opportunity for De'Aaron Fox to be the first great teammate of Victor Wembanyama's career, and he looks hell-bent on trying to make that happen.
And that's the thing. I like the way you put it because he seems reinvigorated in this role. And I think that maybe he had lost a little luster over this last little bit. Like, just didn't look like he was supremely motivated. He's motivated again, and he looks like a winning player. The last one, I just did this one just for you, just to tee it up because, when we talk outside the show. Has your opinion on Luka Dončić changed at all, Jason?
It has. Every time, I've had the opportunity in my life to root for 4 different superstar level talents as a fan. As a fan. Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Luka Dončić. And it's been really interesting to see the juxtaposition of all those guys. And the thing with Luka, there's been 2 things that have really stood out to me over the course of my experience rooting for him over the last year. One, he is by far the most foul grift dependent player in the NBA. That process of just literally hunting fouls, possession after possession after possession, can just get really difficult to watch.
Don't you feel like he's got the little demon Luka on one shoulder and angel Luka on the other, and he always will go to it because it is a part of the game and he's good at drawing it. But there's when he gets frustrated or gets in a rut, the little devil voice is just go for it every time.
Do it again. Do it
again. Do it over and over. And you can just see it. You're like, oh, he's in this mode tonight.
Yeah. And by the way, he's been worse than usual in this department. I know he's capable of being better. He's in a little bit of a slump, and I want to talk about it in a second, but he was better in the second half last night. But there's definitely a foul grifty and complain at the refs, foul grift, complain at the refs, foul grift, complain at the refs thing that just makes him a little hard to watch. The second piece I'd say is his mistakes undercut his success often. He's a high turnover player, and this season in particular, he's just missing a lot of shots. He's missing a lot of step back threes, missing a lot of just overall shot attempts, which are between those and the turnovers, sparking a lot of transition opportunities for the other team. I was telling you this at dinner the other night, but literally he had in that game against Detroit had 19 points directly off of Luka turnovers and Luka missed ISO threes. And it's just really difficult to do that when you're undercutting your success, right? Now, again, to his credit, last night against Memphis in the second half, he has, I think, 17 points and 3 assists, 0 turnovers, only 5 missed shots. And the Lakers ran away with the game in that second half. And so it's that's the thing with Luka. If he can limit his mistakes, avoid the turnovers, keep his, field goal percentage higher. Because when you look at the Shays and the Jokic's, the other great offensive engines in the NBA, Giannis as well, they're making over 50% of their shots. So there's not as many missed shot attempts that are sparking these fast breaks. Basically, since Luka went to Slovenia for the birth of his child, he's 42% from 3, or 42% from the field,
yeah,
and middle 20s from 3, over 5 turnovers per game. That's just a lot of mistakes that makes it really difficult. And for all of the talk about the Lakers roster issues, one of their biggest issues in the last month is that Luka just hasn't been very good on offense.
You mentioned him getting frustrated with the fouls and then leaning into it even harder. I don't know if you know this one, but Serbia has a culture, and he's half Serbian, half Slovenian, of inat. It's part of their cultural identity. This idea of somebody it's spite. So if you don't call a foul on me, I'm going to exaggerate the call every time until you do call it. And I think this is what you're talking about. That's the little demon on his shoulders. He'll go in, get grabbed, no call, and he'll get so mad where he's I'm going to do the same move every time until you notice it and call it. And if they don't call it, it's just 5 times in a row that he does it. And he just gets madder and madder. And Jokic does this one for sure. Luka does it as well. They both have Enot sometimes in the wrong direction.
There's a simple, we talked about this earlier with Shai with taking you out of rhythm. What'll end up happening is then he'll run into a team like Phoenix or Oklahoma City that's really disciplined with their hands, and they never leave their feet. And so for an entire game, it's all right, Luka, now you got to make shots.
Right.
But he hasn't been practicing making shots for the last 10 games. He's been practicing grifting. So now he's out of rhythm and he doesn't have and so it's just one of those things where I think there's a place for trying to get to the foul line. There's a value. It helps control pace, and getting defenders out of position is a very useful way to buy yourself some space against ball pressure. But ultimately there's got to be a balance. And if you lean too heavily into it, I think it's actually a net negative for you.
Well, we were going to end today by talking about the biggest storylines in 2026, the biggest trends. I don't know if we have time to go fully into this, so I'm just going to give you a quick hitters of a couple ones that I think we're going to expect here this year, because I do think 2026 might be a changing of the guard year in the NBA. Not necessarily from the Thunder already have the title. It's not just championship based. It's more identity based. Like, what does the league feel like? I do think this is the year of the new faces of the league: Shai, Wemby, Cade, Ant. You just look at the old guard, and I think that they are slowly fading in terms of their impact, both cultural impact to the league, which is still massive, but more importantly, this playoffs, I think, outside of KD, will largely be void of the old guard. I think KD has a great chance of making a deep run. Outside of that, I do think you're looking at your Brunsons and your Cades and your Ants and your, Wembys. There's just guys that I think are going to be the story. So that's the first part of this. Is I think this is the first year where the best teams feature guys that are south of 30.
No, I completely agree. I came into the season with both the Lakers and the Warriors in my second tier of contenders, meaning
right.
You're not OKC Denver, but you're obviously a legitimate championship contender beyond that. And I just did my contender rankings that I do every month. I just did them last week on Friday, and I dropped both of them down to my third tier, meaning I view them as now so now I view them as real long shots. Everything's got to go right, and you got to get lucky and all that kind of stuff. So I'm 100% with you on that. And I think beyond anything with because here's the thing, Steph has been really good this year. LeBron in his last 11 games is 25, 6 and 6 on 64% true shooting. So LeBron is still playing pretty well. He's been better on defense and on the glass in the last few games, but these young dudes are just all taking leaps. Cade has been fantastic. Jalen Brunson has gone up a level as a scorer in terms of he's very Shai-esque. He's barely ever turns the basketball over, and he's turned into a mid-60s true shooting guy over the last month or so. Look at how good Jaylen Brown has been. Victor Wembanyama and what he's been able to do when he's been healthy and on the floor. They're just, the young generation is just all gone up a tier. And so now they're all just in the threats.
I think even more to the point, the star players are part of it, but I even think you look around at the role players, there's a lot of good young role players. And this is a thing that I think is going to continue. One, teams are very connected. The league is rewarding right now, the way it's played and the talent that's there. It rewards balanced teams that play together. I mean, this is why Phoenix is a great story. Oklahoma City has been doing this and fostering the San Antonio ethical hoops, they say, but there is something to it. And I think the young players coming into whatever it is, cultural or developmental, whatever it is, there's a lot of AJ Mitchells out there, a lot of young players, a lot of Cam Spencers and Pat Spencers and Jalen Wells, and just young players that are stepping into non-star roles. We've always had stars that Tracy McGrady or Kobe Bryant, they come in young and they can make almost an immediate impact. But role players, it seems like you come through and you go through the system, and it's like college. You have to kind of grow into being a starting guy. There's so many young players coming in that are role players right now because they seem to fit the cultural direction of the league better than the veterans even. And I just think that will start to fill it even more and more when we get into the conference finals in the second round of the playoffs, where it's wow, there's a lot of young guys playing important roles and doing it like vets for a lot of good teams.
Yeah, I think that there's a natural progression of the game of basketball too, to where the amount of talent that you see with the Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, the guys that are the third or fourth best guard on a team, the amount of skill and polish that player has now relative to 10, 15 years ago is insane. And this is kind of the natural progression of things when you have all these young basketball players growing up and watching the level of skill that the Steph Curry, James Harden, Devin Booker group of guards that came before these are the guys they grew up rooting for. And so it's starting to kind of reflect in the game. And then the last piece of it that I would say is just, we were talking about it earlier with the Cam Johnson, Michael Porter Jr. swap, but the league has shifted towards speed, and the league has shifted towards a style of play that requires lightning fast decision-making and very simple dribble, shoot, pass reads. And the younger generation that's coming in is just very good at that style of basketball.
Yep. I don't want to spend time on this one, but I'm going to just say it anyway. LeBron's free agency, I think, will be a major story of 2026, just because anything he does, even at this stage where I don't know that it'll necessarily be championship altering, but it is he goes somewhere, it's going to be a big story.
He's LeBron.
And then the same goes for Giannis. I don't want to spend time on it, but there are some high profile people that are at least somewhat likely to get moved in the year 2026. Trae Young's another one, maybe Ja Morant, Paolo Banchero, you never know about, LaMelo Ball. I think that there could be some like pretty sizable moves, in the next year that I think might define the year as much as just about anything. Don't want to spend time on it. The last one I'm going to tell you, though, is this. I think the lottery is going to be a story of 2026. I can already see it coming. One, the Oklahoma City Thunder just have too many outs to get a top pick, and that alone, or multiple picks in the lottery, and that alone would be a big story. And I don't even think this is a matter of tanking. There's good players coming into this draft, and there's a handful of good teams that have a chance at a good pick. And I think that that's just too likely right now that one of those teams is going to sneak into the top 3 or 4. And whether that's Atlanta or Oklahoma City or a handful of these other good, Indiana, these teams that can be really good really quickly. And if you get one or two of those teams jumping into it, it'll just be a huge story that the lottery in a loaded year went to an already contending team.
Can we all agree that Indiana would be the best for the league out of all those teams to get it?
But would it? I mean, they went to the finals already. There's part of me that thinks.
I loved watching them. I want more Indiana Pacer playoff games.
Yeah, that's not. You're not wrong about it. You're not wrong about it. But I do think there's something to. There's some landmines if really bad teams like your Washingtons and Brooklyn, teams that have been suffering for a while, end up with a 6 seed. And some of these teams like Atlanta or San Antonio or Oklahoma City end up with a 3 seed. And we go, oh my God, that's tough. And then people will talk about whether we have to do something about it. We have one super chat before we get out of here. Atticus on his first day on the job. By the way, shout out Atticus. Well done today. I know he was sweating this one. It's like, it's like the rookie who's starting for the first time. He's out here, but he knocked down his quarter 3. So yeah. Psycho Blue, he says B-Ball Cthulhu is wide awake as the cursed Suns wreak unrestrained chaos on the West. National pundits owe Matt, B-Reg, and Ott big apologies along with Book, Dylan, and company. When it's time to Sparty Hardy, we will Sparty hard. Okay, there was a lot to that one. I will say this though, Matt Ishbia, wild boy his first couple years at the helm, and then goes out and triples down and mocks everybody that says that, because he said we're going to reestablish the culture and we're not trying to tank, we're going to be good. And I'll be honest, I was part of it that said, hey man, you can't talk until you do something. Well, he talked, but he was right. He knew what he was doing. He's built a great culture out there.
Absolutely. I think they deserve so much credit for so many different things, from the incredible roster balancing of the Kevin Durant trade to finding quality talent on the margins like a Colin Gillespie or a Jordan Goodwin, making a bet on Mark Williams to be a good defender when he had shown basically no potential of that in the past, or at least in terms, he had the athletic potential, but not in terms of the execution. And so credit them for doing what they've done, but I don't know anybody who had them at 21-14 at this point. So
only Matt Ishbia.
If you have that tweet, DM it to me just because I want to see it and give you a round of applause. Because I felt like I was high on the Suns coming into the season, and I thought they'd be, I thought they'd go like 38-44 or something like that.
Matt Ishbia came into the league, traded for Kevin Durant, stole the ball in a playoff game from Jokic in the stands, tried to get into all this stuff. I didn't like that Matt Ishbia. This guy, though, you know what, totally redeeming himself. And shout out the Suns, who are getting a really fun team to root for. Cue that outro music there, Atticus. Guys, we sincerely appreciate you tuning in and spending an hour with us on these Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and then, of course, over the weekend with Mark Stein. Means a lot to us, and it'd mean a lot to us if you guys subscribed. Hit the like button for us. Left comments below and let us know what you think. Legs will be back on Wednesday and Friday this week, so we'll get Legs' response as we get into some more games deeper into this January. You can check out Jason Timpf at the Volume. Everybody, have yourself a great couple days.
We all silly like the mayor.